What was your first job in the entertainment industry?
Well, I grew up on movie sets. As Dean Bassett said, my family's in the motion picture business, and so I grew up on sets, and always knew, went to Georgetown, and I always knew that I wanted to be in the movie business. My first job was partially because it was a job at a studio, and partially because my then girlfriend and now wife Marcy was in California, so that's where I wanted to be too. But I worked as a financial analyst, research analyst at MGM, and what it does is it puts you in touch with customers. It puts you in touch with the people who actually are buying tickets to a movie. And one of the things that happens sometimes in Hollywood is that there's a very big separation of church and state between the people that make the movies and the people who actually pay to buy the tickets to go see the movies. And I liked being in the middle there, where I actually had an actual connection with our customers. And I strongly encourage all of you, depending on who your audience is, to really have a good sense of who they are. Sometimes you just want to make a movie because you just want to make it for yourself, and that's fine. But if you're trying to make a movie in a business context, it's very important to know who you're making it for, and it's very important to know what they want.
And could you walk us through a typical day for you at IMAX?
Sure. A typical day is I come into my office, I look at the grosses of whatever movie it is that's playing. I tend to make a lot of phone calls. I have very connected with my boss, and he likes to kind of know what's going on for the day. So we usually have a little bit of a conversation in the morning, and then many conversations, as Marcy knows, throughout the day and night. I do a lot of. I'm a big believer in customer relations. So I spend a lot of time talking on the phone to our exhibitor customers, either museums, science centers, or aquarium people, or our multiplex operators. I spend a lot of time talking to the studios, and I'm constantly in my car driving from meeting to meeting to meeting. And there are a lot of people that really think video conferencing is great, and talking on the phone all the time is great. I think that when you connect with someone and you're in the room with them, you get a lot more resolved, a lot more done than you do by emailing and texting and whatever. So I'm a big believer in actually getting to know the person on the other side. I often watch dailies of whatever movie it is that we're either making or converting or working on through our process. I'm always focused, especially these days, on marketing. So I spend a lot of time working with my marketing team to make sure that we're properly selling the IMAX experience. And then ultimately, usually I'll have a meeting or one or two a day with some filmmaker who I'm either working with or want to work with. And we often bring them into our office, and we have a beautiful IMAX screening room in our office. And I call it sort of the closer, because whenever I really need to get someone to say yes, I take part of their movie, I convert it into IMAX, I invite them into the screening room, I show it to them. We always get what usually the net result that we want.
That's a good strategy. So being the chairman of a major company whose reach is international obviously means you've had to make some tough decisions. Tough decisions that have affected a lot of people. So is there the top of the list of the toughest decision you've had to make in your career and at IMAX?
The toughest decision that I've had to make in my career isn't actually a tangible decision. It's more of a philosophy. I learned that we tried to be the nicest studio, but we were still a buyer. You're still a studio, so you say yes a lot more than you say no. People come to you and try and get you to say yes so you can buy something. And I learned, and I had a very, very hard time being told no. And so I think that the toughest decision that I made or went through was being fired from my job at MGM after 15 years, being offered the IMAX job, which I actually said no to the first time it was offered to me, and going and working at an internet company that I started. And I spent 2 years with my hand out trying to get money from people to fund my internet company. And it was at that point that I learned to handle, not perfectly, as Marcy knows, but better than I used to, being told no and not taking it personally. very, very difficult when you're passionate about something in a business context, and I fully admit that I'm passionate about what I do. Being told no is a very difficult thing in the beginning to kind of, especially constantly, to reconcile. So I would say, doesn't completely answer your question, but if there's anything that I've really learned and that was very difficult for me to learn, it's to understand that sometimes no is the right answer, and you just have to know when to kind of move on. So I don't know if that's what I said in our pre-interview, but that's...
No, that was close.
Okay.
That was good. So moving more into IMAX and business-related issues, one of the biggest developments this year is the diversification with going into 3D television with Sony and Discovery Communications to deliver a 24/7 3D network. Can you tell us about IMAX's role in that partnership, and how did this strategy come about?
Our core business is and will be for the foreseeable future making movies, getting filmmakers and studios to give us their movies and to put it through the IMAX DMR process, and then exhibiting them with our partners in exhibition. With that said, because things are going fairly well right now, and because 3D technology is so apparent, omnipresent, it came about because it's a new business opportunity, and it's just a matter of time until there is true 3D television. Watching the Academy Awards, I must have seen 20 commercials for the new Samsung 3D television. I can't imagine how much they spent on Academy Award weekend, but there were a lot of them. And I think it's just a matter of time until that happens. So we basically are putting our foothold, our flag down in that space. Because when you say to most people, 3D, I think a lot of people think of IMAX. I don't mean this in a pejorative way at all, but very few people woke up this morning and said they wanted to go see a movie that Studio A made. Let's go see a Warner Brothers movie, or let's go see a Universal movie. I don't think people really pick films that way. Maybe they do with Pixar, and Warner Brothers is our strongest customer, so I'm not knocking them, I'm just being practical. But every day people wake up and say, let's go catch an IMAX movie. And I think that if there was an IMAX television presence, people would be more inclined to watch it. And so that's really what it's about. It's making a bet on the future, and I think that there's no doubt that the future is 3D. 3D is not a panacea for me. Not everything belongs, as I mentioned, in 3D, but 3D is definitely, because of the convergence of technology, because of studios and exhibitors recognizing that people are willing to pay a little bit more and come more frequently if things are in 3D. I think that's definitely where it's going. During the last hour, when we were having dinner, I got a phone call from my head of distribution who said there's a movie that we're working on, and the studio, after Alice in Wonderland this past weekend and Avatar, decided today that they're going to convert their movie into 3D. They felt they had to release it in 3D. This is a movie that comes out in the next several months. So everyone's thinking about 3D, whether it's television, whether it's film. There's momentum for 3D right now.
So this moves into my next question. So a lot of people, they think that this modern 3D trend, it's a gimmick and it's oversaturating the industry. But in the case of Avatar, the IMAX technology definitely enhanced the experience. But how will IMAX continue to keep its product differentiated and fresh when competitors such as AMC and Cinemark roll out their own oversized format technology?
Well, they're not competitors, they're our partners. And the reason that they're creating alternative systems is because when IMAX makes a deal with an exhibitor for a market, one of the things that we insist on is exclusivity to protect our customers. So for instance, if you decide that you want to build an IMAX theater at an AMC complex that's in Orange, California, we would never put you in a position of then allowing another exhibitor to come in and build an IMAX theater across the street. We provide exclusivity. So these, as you say, competitive systems are systems that are going in often with our own partners in areas that they can't buy into. Because sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't. But if someone builds an IMAX theater or puts in an IMAX theater, we take a radius and we give them a zone of exclusivity. So if we're protecting you in a zone and you're not our customer in that zone, but you have a multiplex to compete